So, what mistakes do we see across the board most in any scale, any level of beekeeper? What are the mistakes we see done over and over and over again?
Over and over and over again probably tells me that we're initially talking about inspections.
Yeah, I
As
think so
new
too.
beekeepers have a tendency to over inspect,
Hmm.
which is not necessarily a bad thing because that is how they learn beekeeping.
It is.
But there comes a point in time when you truly need to understand when enough is enough. And so I think that the opposite could also be true for commercial beekeepers that have large populations. It may very well be that they don't have the manpower or women power to inspect often enough.
Right.
So I think inspections.
I agree. And to just recap the part of too much, because I think that when we are new beekeepers, we want to go in, and that is we encourage our new beekeepers go in and see what's going on. Maybe even if it's just to take a peek. But probably more often than not, it's that too often. We've had mentees over the years that the too often caused more problems, queens being damaged or killing the queens. And it's because of that frequent pulling of frames, because we've got to admit that that's their house, and they don't want us intruding it too often. I remember years ago doing a skit to impart upon new beekeepers about going into colonies too often was, if someone were to knock on your door every single day, come in and move around your furniture, would you stay? Probably not. You would go, I'm out of here. So, not too often, but often enough, right? That means have inspection schedule.
In some ways, what you were describing could be called a stressor.
You could.
That is a self-induced stressor. Being able to identify stressors within a colony is such an important aspect of beekeeping and management, and that knowing what we're looking for. If we don't know what we're looking for, whether we have one colony or 1,000 colonies, the person doing the inspection must have a goal, must have a purpose, must understand what those stressors are. And like you and I teach, we're looking for both the good things in a colony and the negative things in a colony, positives and negatives, and make an overall assumption as to what's really taking place. Understanding stressors to me is so important.
And and doing something about it. Okay, so now I know what I've seen, but do something about it. So that over and over that I have seen, that over across the board, no matter whether it's a first-year beekeeper or a 5-year beekeeper, is, oh yeah, I saw the bees were pulling in the making honey. My bottom box was nearly full of honey, and that top box was full. What did that tell me? That told me that my queen is running out of space. That's an indicator. You should be seeing lights go off in your head. So acting on what you see, identify that as an issue and act on it. So don't let the bees just be bees and do whatever they want to do.
The beekeeping world is no different than the life of the beekeeper, and that if we avoid doing something at a proper time frame in our own personal lives, personally we're going to suffer. If we recognize that an action needs to be taken within our colonies and we don't react to it, that event that is occurring is only going to get worse.
Well, I hate to use the word neglect because it really kind of is. If you don't react, it's going to be something else. And we've said that many times. If you leave a problem and you wait to go in and do something about it, when you go back, it's not going to be the same problem. It's not. You may or may not have a problem. They may all be gone, and your problem's gone.
Here's a good one. Bee space, understanding bee space, honoring bee space, and not just making the assumption that everything will be okay. We see this so often where, especially when internal feeders are being utilized, or they were once utilized and they're no longer being utilized, they're just left in there. The bees have filled that cavity up of that division board feeder.
All of a sudden that's a brood frame.
It's a brood frame, or it's a bunch of honey, or it's a whatever. But it's not a active managed position within the colony where the bees can actually control what's happening.
Bees absolutely will create their own bee space, won't they? No matter what.
Well, and they're going to determine whether that space is going to be brood space, whether it's going to be honey space, and they're going to work accordingly. And ideally, as beekeepers, we should manage that bee space within our colony. Yes, it's great for the bees to tell us what they want to do. That's very natural beekeeping, but that's unmanageable beekeeping. If we allow drone comb to just overwhelm us, or if we allow burr comb between our two frames to get out of control, then we're rupturing honey, and we're forcing robbing to occur. So many things happen when we just don't pay attention. Bee space is just such an important aspect of beekeeping.
It is, and pushing those frames together to maintain that bee space. So we run 9 frames in our boxes, even in the 10 frame boxes, because in learning bee biology, we know that bees build their nest in the center, right? That's what we have learned, and we've witnessed that. So if they're building their nest in the center and they're putting groceries on the outside, if we have 9 frames, that means the honey is going to be on the outside. So if I'm going to squeeze those frames together, I know that those honey frames are going to get drawn out larger. They've got space to draw those honey frames out larger. And it also gives me a little more space to work the box efficiently. But keeping those frames smashed together good, always, never spaced out in the brood nest. We can space our frames in a honey super, but knowing that, respecting that bee space in that honey net, that brood nest is really important.
We want to make sure that within the brood nest, we're producing brood to the maximum ability that we can.
Yeah.
There's lots of places to store honey.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of places.
Doesn't have to be in there.
We don't. Yeah, so ensuring that through the proper use of bee space
That's right.
is an important aspect of it.
So learning bee space is good.
Yeah, I like that.